When you are ready to get serious about finding good deals in today's real estate market, there are two things that you need. The first is a really good agent, one who's diligent with following up, one who knows the areas that you're looking for, one who's a great negotiator, and one who is your fiduciary, the person who has your best interests in mind at all times throughout a transaction, because chances are this is one of the biggest deals, one of the biggest investments that you'll make in your life or have made in your life. Yes, that is why it's important to have someone looking out for you. The second thing you need is an exclusive buyer-broker agreement, the BRE. The BRE is a handshake that you have with your agent. It's not really a marriage or anything like that, but it's an agreement that communicates your obligation to that agent to use them and your commitment to them, that you're going to use them as your representation whenever you do find the home that you're looking for. Why is this important? Well, it's important because if you don't have communication with your agent that you have a commitment to them and it's not in writing that you two owe each other obligations and that you have an understood relationship with each other, then what happens is if you have multiple agents or that agent feels you have multiple agents, then they're going to be high pressure. That's just what it comes down to. They're going to be incentivized to tell you that you need to buy this home or need to buy this home. They are going to push compromises over your comfort. They're going to tell you about the features of the property. Well, they should do that anyway. And make them the focal point, each property you look at, the focal point of your search. Because the reason that is because they know that if you don't buy a house from them, then the next day you may see another house with another agent and buy it with them instead. And then all of that time, any effort that they put into that transaction or into that relationship now is just being rewarded to another agent. So then you don't really get the best experience possible. Yes, maybe you see a lot more properties. Maybe you see a lot more viewpoints. You get a lot more talk, right, about different solutions for what you're looking for. It becomes a second job for you, for you to be searching for a home rather than having one agent who knows that you are going to buy from them. They don't need to push any property. They don't need to be high pressure. They can just think about what is in your best interest and help you through the compromises you are most comfortable with, rather than selling you on every property and pitching you every property. Doesn't that sound nice? It sounds nice to just be able to have more of an ease of access and have a focus on just the search, because this is not the only thing going on in your life. Yeah, I think so too. So what we're going to talk about is this agreement today. My name is Alex Stoeber, and in this video, we are going to go over the BRE, the exclusive buyer broker agreement, and we are going to talk about what it means for you. So let's jump into it. First, what you should know is that there is a disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. There's a difference between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. The seller's agent represents the seller on the listing side, and the buyer's agent represents the buyer's agent, you, on your side. And also what you should know is that there is possibility of dual agency. So it's possible that the agent that you choose is also representing the seller on the transaction. And that means that you need to have comfortability that you are going to be taken care of if your agent is representing the seller as well. Make sense? Yeah. If the seller is negotiating against you and there's one agent involved, then it's possible that you have a free flow of communication and that you get an agent who already knows what the seller wants and it takes out the guesswork. Or there's the possibility that you get pressured by that agent in order to get what the seller wants so that the transaction gets closed as fast as possible. And it's not always the best way to go, but if you trust your agent's ability to uphold this agreement, this fiduciary agreement, then you should be taken care of along the way, and you should be communicating your comfort level with that transaction throughout the deal. So what you can hold your buyer's agent accountable to is diligent exercise of reasonable skill and care in performance of the agent's duties. You should also know that there's a duty of honest and fair dealing in good faith, and that there's a duty to disclose all facts known to the agent materially affecting the value or desirability of the property that are not known to or within the diligent attention and observation of the parties. An agent is not obligated to reveal to either party any confidential information obtained from the other party that does not involve the affirmative duties set forth above. So what you should also know is there's a civil code here, and then we go to fair housing and discrimination advisory. You are signing off that your agent, you're telling your agent that you're not gonna ask them to steer you away from different areas with different races, sexes, marital statuses, colors, sexual orientations, genders, sources of income, any of that stuff. Because we are held to a high standard as realtors that we are not going to steer you into specific neighborhoods. And then what you should also know, these are examples of positive practices that we are held to. So here's really where the BRE starts. And the buyer representation agreement exclusive will detail how long the agreement is going to be for, typically 6 months to a year. And you'll talk about where the location is, Santa Barbara County, what price range, maybe 1 to 5 million. And you can also detail specific properties that you want to just have. So if your agent finds you an agent, if your agent finds you a house off market, then what happens is you can actually detail that specific property here for them to represent you as your fiduciary. What you should know about agency relationships is there is a potential for dual agency with the seller. That just means you really have to be comfortable with that agent representing both sides, and that there is a possibility that you can do single agency only. So maybe you only use your agent for properties that they list for sale in their brokerage, or that they do not list for sale in their brokerage. Additionally, there is the potential for other buyers. So if you are interested in a property and your broker has another buyer that's interested in the same property, you may end up putting offers on the same property as another buyer that your broker is representing. In our team, we just have another agent step in for that situation, or we have the broker be able to represent both sides, depending on your comfortability and your comfort level in having that situation happen. Some agents do just have one of their team members come in, negotiate for one buyer or the other, and then whichever one rules out and wins out in that situation, then, for example, I would step in and take over for whichever buyer got the transaction, and then maybe there's a backup position that the other buyer goes into, and then we go and find the other buyer that doesn't win the transaction, go find them the house that they are going to win. And typically the compensation for any real estate transaction is 2.5%. However, the amount or rate of real estate commissions is not fixed by law. So if your agent finds you a property off market and you're able to buy it at a great discount, or you get a super good deal on it because there are no other buyers involved, then you would be paying them the 2.5% commission unless the seller does pay that. So that's what happens here, is that if anyone other than the buyer compensates the broker for services covered by this agreement, then the amount shall be credited to you. So if the broker does negotiate a deal where the seller pays the commission, that is standard in real estate, that the seller always pays the commission because it's their house, then you would not be charged for that fee. And the broker right to compensation here is essentially saying that. So If your agreement finishes, in 6 months, and then you find a house with your broker that you don't close on until a month out of that 6 months, then you still owe the broker commission if the seller doesn't pay it. Essentially, is what this C1 to 1 and 2 are both saying. And then timing of compensation, it should be just right at the end of the transaction. You don't pay for anything. You don't pay the fee if the deal doesn't close, right? So that's a big thing with being a real estate agent, is that we only get paid when the results happen for our clients. That's why we're so good at what we do, hopefully. And the buyer also hereby irrevocably assigns to the broker the compensation provided above, and the broker may submit this agreement as instructions to compensate the broker to any escrow regarding property involving the seller and or a buyer, a seller or other transferor. So it's possible that the broker submits this agreement to the escrow company so that the escrow company knows to pay you to pay the agent out of the net proceeds. Also, what you should know is that the broker has authorizations and obligations. So the buyer authorizes broker to locate and present selected properties to the buyer, present offers authorized by the buyer, and assist the buyer in negotiating or acceptance of such offers, assist the buyer with the financing process, including obtaining the loan, pre-qualification, upon request, provide buyer with a list of professionals or vendors who perform the services described in the attached buyer's inspection advisory, order reports, and schedule and attend meetings and appointments with professionals chosen by the buyer, and provide guidance to the buyer with the acquisition of the property, and obtain a credit report on the buyer. So that's all important stuff, very important obligations, because that means that the broker's essentially, earning their worth. They're going out, they're meeting with these professionals, they're aggregating information and giving you the best idea of which loans you should be getting, which professionals you should be talking to, the processes that you should be getting, the reports that you should be ordering, all of those things. And for property transactions of which the buyer is aware and not precluded from participating in by the buyer, broker shall provide and review forms to create a property contract for the acquisition of a specific property with respect to such property. Buyer shall, if the property contains residential property with 1 to 4 dwelling units, conduct a reasonably competent and diligent on-site visual inspection of the accessible areas of the property, excluding any common areas, and disclose to buyer all facts and material affecting the value or desirability of such property that are revealed by this inspection, and deliver or communicate to the buyer any disclosures, materials, or information received by, in the personal possession, or personally known to the individual signing for by the broker below during the representation period, and facilitate the escrow process, including assisting the buyer in negotiating with the seller, unless otherwise specified in writing. Any information provided through broker in the course of representing buyer has not been and will not be verified by the broker. Broker services are performed in compliance with federal, state, and local anti-discrimination laws. That's pretty straightforward for the most part. What you should know is that they are going to write the contract for you, and they are going to do visual inspections for you, and they're also going to tell you if there's anything that is going to affect the desirability or value of the property. They're also going to communicate to you any disclosures, materials, or information received. And then they'll also make sure that you are being represented properly throughout the transaction. And they're going to be obviously following the rules and following the laws along the way. So the scope of broker duty, essentially what you should know is that they're going to investigate the property through inspections, investigations, tests, but they're not doing it. They are going to select the professionals to do those for you, and you are going to acknowledge that they're not going to decide what price you should pay. They're going to give you guidance on that. They're not going to guarantee the condition of the property. They're not going to guarantee the performance, adequacy, or completeness of inspections, services, products, or repairs provided by the seller or the sellers or others. They do not have an obligation to conduct an inspection of common areas offsite the property, shall not be responsible for identifying defects on the property or in common areas offsite, such as defects or visually observable by an inspection of reasonably accessible areas of the property or known to the broker. And they shall not be responsible for inspecting public records or permits concerning the title or use of the property, shall not be responsible of identifying the location and boundary lines. They should not be responsible for verifying square footage, representations of others, or information contained in investigation reports, MLS, advertisements, flyers, or other promotional materials. They shall not be responsible for providing legal or tax advice, and they shall not be responsible for providing other advice or information that exceeds the knowledge, education, and experience required to perform real estate license activity. Buyer agrees to seek legal, tax, insurance, title, and other desired assistance from appropriate professionals. Your agent is a Swiss Army knife. They will do so much for you throughout the transaction. They will go above and beyond. They are your best resource for getting your best interest sought after, but they're not everything. They're not your inspector. They're not your tax advisor. They're not your legal advisor in that specific hat that they're wearing, right? So some are also legal, they're lawyers as well, or they're also tax professionals, or they're also insurance agents, or they're also title agents. But that's not your average realtor. Like, that's not most realtors. And sometimes you don't want someone who's doing all of those duties to be representing you, because that means that they're not focused on just real estate. They're focused on all of these other ideas, all these other businesses, and not just real estate. Some people are superheroes, and I have all the respect in the world for those people, but also sometimes it's best to have specialists in different fields that are all focused on one specific job, one specific business throughout their days. So what you should know about your obligations is that buyers are agreed to timely view and consider properties selected by the broker and to negotiate in good faith to acquire a property. Buyer further agrees to act in good faith towards the completion of any property contract entered into in furtherance of this agreement within 5 calendar days from the execution of the agreement. This agreement, buyer shall provide relevant personal and financial information to broker to assure buyer's ability to acquire the property described in paragraph 1. If the buyer fails to provide such information, or if the buyer does not qualify financially to acquire a property described in paragraph 1, then broker may cancel this agreement in writing. Buyer has an affirmative duty to take steps to protect him or herself, including the discovery of the legal, practical, and technical implications of discovered or disclosed facts, and investigation of information and facts which are known to buyer or within the diligent attention and observation of the buyer. Buyer is obligated and agrees to read all documents provided to the buyer. Buyer agrees to seek desired assistance from appropriate professionals selected by the buyer, such as those referenced in the attached BIA or Buyer's Inspection Advisory. Buyer shall also notify broker in writing of any material issued to buyer, such as but not limited to buyer requests for information on or concerning regarding any particular area of interest or important to the buyer, material issues. And buyer agrees to indemnify, defend, and hold broker harmless for all claims, disputes, litigation, judgments, costs, and attorney fees arising from any incorrect information supplied by buyer or from any material issues that buyer fails to disclose in writing to broker, and pay for reports, inspections, and meetings arranged by the broker on buyer's behalf. Buyer is advised to read the attached BIA. So essentially what you should know here is that, you have to be a good buyer. You have to be serious about it. You wouldn't be watching this video, and thank you so much for watching the video, but you wouldn't be watching the video if you weren't interested in this. And because you're interested in it means you're not looking to get into deals and then jump out of deals and not look at properties as fast as possible. You're not looking to hide material issues with your credit or reasons that you may not be able to qualify for buying a home, or potentially get into a deal on a house when you have respiratory issues and you know that there's a lot of radon in the Santa Barbara foothills. Then if you're not asking your broker to hire an inspector to view all the radon and check those levels, then that's going to be an issue. So you're probably not going to do that. That's not something that you're looking to. You probably listen to this buyer obligations, hopefully maybe skip through it, and we're like, yeah, I got all this taken care of. And I totally get that. And that's the best place to come from, is knowing your obligations. That's what are going over here. And also know that you're going to hold your broker harmless if you do exclude any information that would have made it potentially an issue for the closing of the transaction. So yeah, attorney fees in any action, proceeding, or arbitration between buyer and broker regarding the obligation to pay compensation under this agreement, the prevailing buyer or broker shall be entitled to reasonable attorney fees and costs, except as provided in paragraph 11A, which would be like dispute resolution, mediation terms, and advisory. And you can review this. All understandings between the parties are incorporated in this agreement. So everything in this agreement is what you can hold each other to, your agent and you, the buyer. And you have an investigation advisory talking to you about the general conditions of the property, rental property restrictions, and then you have California Consumer Privacy Act advisory as well, talking about what your rights are when you're going into a transaction and what can be withheld as well. You can also opt out or stop the transfer of your personal information to others and request to that the business delete your PI entirely as well. You have complete autonomy over and sovereignty over your information. So that is the buyer broker agreement, and I know that that's a lot. It's a lot to go over, but trust me, it is so important for you to have the proper person who has signed off on this, knows their obligations, knows what they're going to do in order to take care of everything that you're looking to have done in the transaction and get you the new home without giving you pressure, without making you feel like you're getting pitched on every time you see a house. You want to feel comfortable in this transaction. You want to feel comfortable because this is not the only thing going on in your life. You have plenty more to worry about, and worrying about having multiple agents is not something you should be worried about. Or maybe you really want to just kind of have many options, but just know that that does come with a cost. If you have any questions about this real estate relationships or exclusive buyer broker agreement, please reach out. Let me know if you have any questions. And thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications for future videos like this one. Thank you so much.